I just got done watching Fast 10, and while this is a very messy movie, it is one that is, in my eyes, a franchise saver, certainly before we get to the end of the road. Because this is the part 1 to what certainly could be a part 2 and a part 3 upcoming. I don't believe that we're getting a part 3. Again, I could be proven wrong on that. I know Vin Diesel said it.
They said, could you make Fast X, the finale, a trilogy? So,
it's 3 acts in any story.
Yeah.
So are you guys confirming right now that we're getting a third movie?
Trouble here.
Wait!
I'm waiting for the studio to announce that, but we are for sure getting a part 2, and I'm here to tell you that Fast 10 is the best Fast and Furious movie since Furious 7, which I love 5, 6, and 7 so much. That trilogy of Fast and Furious movies is some of my favorite action films to go back and rewatch. And I'm a fan of the original one as well, which was pretty much just a Point Break ripoff, but it was a blast. And I've liked this franchise, and I didn't even hate 8 or 9. But I will say that I started to, lose my interest in 8. And 9 made me legit lose brain cells when they went to space. I just thought that was the stupidest thing I've ever seen. But like I mentioned, Fast 10 did save this franchise in some ways, shapes, and form. And a lot of that can be said because of the decisions that they decided to make with the story, as well as Jason Momoa as the villain. And I'm very excited to talk about Fast 10 today, so I definitely want to hear your guys' thoughts down below in the comment section. So why not leave your guys' thoughts? What's your thoughts on the Fast and Furious franchise? Do you completely disagree with me? You might. I would understand completely. Like I mentioned, this is a very messy movie, but I think if Luis, the director of this, had actually come on earlier and not in the middle of production after the original director Justin Lin had left, I think he would have had a better shot at maybe making one of the best Fast and Furious movies thus far. But Fast 10, it takes place after F9, of course, and over many, many missions and against impossible odds, Dominic Toretto and his family have outsmarted and outdriven every foe in their path. Now they must confront the most lethal opponent they've ever faced. Fueled by revenge, a terrifying threat emerges from the shadows of the past to shatter Dom's world and destroy everything and everyone he loves. Of course, again, they've really hyped this up to be their big Infinity War and this big finale for the Fast and Furious franchise. And for me, coming out of the gate, starting with my pros, because that's the best thing you can do, this movie is highly entertaining. I think this film understands what the Fast and Furious franchise was needing specifically and what it got from 5, 6, and 7. And some of that was, of course, Dwayne Johnson as franchise Viagra. But in this film, you get Jason Momoa, who is arguably the best villain in this entire franchise, which is not a high bar, but we've had some good ones. Luke Evans, Jason Statham, they were great. Obviously, they turned good. Idris Elba's great in Hobbs and Shaw. Hobbs is technically a villain at one point. And, Charlize Theron, you got an Academy Award-winning actress in here. Here's my thing. Jason Momoa is pure adrenaline. Like I mentioned, if The Rock was Viagra for this franchise, Jason Momoa is like a shot of adrenaline mixed with probably every sort of substance and drug you could ever imagine piled into one villain. I imagine that this is what Jared Leto wanted to do with his Suicide Squad Joker, and we get that, but with Jason Momoa being the most unhinged, charismatic villain that we could possibly see, and again, injecting enough energy into this movie to really push it forward. And not just to push the film forward, but as well as to push the situations, the stakes, the characters to the very edge. And he made it work. And it makes the characters and everything that you've built up about it. Because us as Fast and Furious fans, because I am a Fast and Furious fan, we come to these movies obviously for the action, the stupid car stunts, the dumb things that they're going to do that cars should not be able to do, but they're going to be absolutely going above and beyond to suspend our disbelief to a certain extent. What this movie was able to do was suspend our disbelief to a certain extent to where I could actually believe of certain things that they were doing with the cars. When I look at 8, when I look at 9, they break a lot of those rules. And that's where it kind of started falling apart a little bit. But I think, again, 10 brings that back because it brings back that center. It also brings back that center of family. The family theme is always in each and every one of these movies. But I think in like 8 and 9, it's kind of just become memeable. In this one, it's there. And I liked it. Now, again, this one is more about the action, and the way that I can actually like say that is that this is the Infinity War, I would assume, for the Fast and Furious franchise. Every single character you could possibly imagine, all globe-trotting all around the world, action in every single moment, and that's how it is. There's not really a slow moment to build up character in this one, and I do think the film may have needed that, and again, I'm not defending, like, if you tell me this movie's a piece of shit, I'm not going to defend that, but I think there is an argument to be made with what I'm saying is that this did save the franchise from becoming an exhausting mess, and I think that's where F9 was starting to take it at. And I'm happy we're not getting more stupid, ludicrous, no pun intended on that, ludicrous stuff like the space sequence from F9. So, you get Jason Momoa, a great villain. You also have new characters in here. Because I could spend time talking about Vin Diesel and how good he is in the role, but he's Vin Diesel. He plays Dominic Toretto. Michelle Rodriguez, I love her. I love her as Letty. The rest of the cast, you can really much just go on and on about each and every person and how good they are because they play the same character you've known before. There's not much more to them. You're going to have fun with each and every one of them. But talking about the new people, if we're talking other than Jason Momoa, Brie Larson joins the cast. She's great. I thought she was fun. I wanted more of her. Alan Richardson also joins the cast. Love him. Wanted more of him. And if we're also speaking on this, Leo Perry, who plays Dom's son in here, he is awesome in here, and I thought he had great chemistry with each and every person, specifically John Cena, who I thought John Cena was absolutely not good in F9, and I say that as someone who does like John Cena in movies, specifically the Suicide Squad, specifically Peacemaker. When you know how to use him, the script here knew how to use John Cena. It used him to such an effective degree, playing the cool, fun uncle. It was awesome to see, to say the least. I know some people might be asking about Rita Moreno and Daniela from the Suicide Squad. Rita's not really in here, so don't come to this movie for that. And Daniela's good in the role. Her backstory, though, was a little bit, okay, I like where it was. Again, wanted more of it. Seems like what this film was to provide entertainment, action, but at the same time set up for where part 2 is going to take us. I genuinely don't know where they're going to go with a part 3. I think that's a little bit too much and a little bit too far-fetched, because at that point, this movie's about 2.5 hours. I assume the next part will be 2.5 hours. You're going to tell me we got a 9-hour trilogy of Fast and Furious movies? Really? This is very much the setup, establishing the characters, establishing where each and every one of them are, by the end of this leading us into the dire consequences that this film leaves us on, making us excited for part 2. And I say this as someone who, after 7, I just thought, that's it, end it there. Watched 8, and I was like, oh, that was cool. Don't know if I'm too excited for a 9. Then we got 9, and I'm like, oh, yeah. Wasn't terrible, well, to me at least, but it wasn't great, and it started to worry me a little bit about this franchise. But now looking at like where 10 sends us off at, I sit there and I'm like, wow, that was entertaining. I forgot how much I love this cast, and I love this family of, like, just in general. I guess I am becoming the meme family.
Mi familia.
I genuinely love seeing these characters. And while I don't think I'll be an emotional mess when we say goodbye to them, I am very happy to see where each and every one of these characters are starting to get taken place at. And it's not like this film goes any deep. It doesn't need to go deep. It's not like we come here for the stories, but we do come here for these characters because we are entertained by them. And the film, again, knows exactly what kind of film it needs to be. F9 did not know that. F8 did not know the direction it wanted to go in. This film sets and course corrects the entire franchise back to what we need, which makes it pretty messy. There's no doubt about that. So I guess that's where we should get into my issues. The messy aspects of this film obviously come from a director leaving mid-production. And the cast has already talked about that. There were days where they would film stuff and there would be no director there. Those scenes are as clear and evident as possible. A lot of the dialogue-heavy scenes where I don't think there was a director there, the pacing is all over the place. And that can be said for the entire film. The film is way too long. I think there could have been easily 20 minutes chopped out of this movie. But to say the least, I'm watching it and I'm like, okay. And the first 20, 30 minutes were pretty rough. I'm not going to lie or deny that. Some of it was pacing issues, some of it was story structure and the way that they're kind of bringing it about, and a lot of it was actually just purely the editing. But I think that's also because Luis, as the director, did not get a fair shot at this film. I don't even want to say that this film was completely directed, but from what I could tell was directed, Luis did a good job. I think there's a lot missing in this film because of that messiness, as well as trying to course correct because of the results of F9 and how fans felt on that film, and also on Fast 8, and them trying to correct and bring us back to what fans really like in 5, 6, and 7. So centering the story on a character who is the son of a villain that we didn't love, but we love that movie. Smart choice, because then it leads us into, of course, 6 and 7, and how that was affected by there. And I would go as again to feel like that the stakes and everything from there are back. But now when we look at this, you got to get messy to course correct that, because you got to not retcon things, but you got to bring in new characters. You got to establish new things because certain characters have died, certain characters have come back, and you got to course correct these things to bring to life certain things and resolve certain issues that not everything feels satisfying in that matter. And again, this is a part 1, so maybe part 2 will fix some of those issues. But I always still believe that when you watch a part 1 to anything, you should still leave fully satisfied. When I watched Infinity War, I felt completely satisfied. When I watched The Two Towers, I felt completely satisfied. Mockingjay Part 1, didn't feel satisfied with. Divergent, let's not even talk about that series, but I didn't feel satisfied whatsoever from that. And for me, when you get these part 1s, that is the major risk of a lot of things, is how much setup you're going to have. And I think this film, while a lot of it is setup, it's still very exciting and at least entertaining. But there are things that's going to leave you a little bit going, okay. And as a film critic, when I review a Fast and Furious movie, I feel like sometimes you have to throw the book out the window and remember, not everything you watch is going to be top-tier movie making. This is a Fast and Furious movie. I don't expect that at this point. This franchise has never been about that. This franchise has never been about the story. It's always been about the exciting elements and the characters that we go along for the journey with. And that's what you get here. Okay for me to sit here and nitpick certain issues that I have with the movie. Too many characters, all that stuff. So, with that said, I'm rambling. I think Fast 10 saves this franchise. There's no doubt about it. That's the way that I feel. You might disagree, and that's okay. You can share your thoughts down below in the comment section. But for what we get, we understand the characters we're going to be going on an adventure with. I like where they establish these characters. I like by the end of this film where they leave each and every one of the characters, and it makes me more excited for part 2 than I ever was for part 1. I got excited once I saw the trailer for part 1, but everything else leading into this 8 and 9 did not make me excited to see where they were going to continue this. Jason Momoa is the best villain of this entire franchise. And I really like a lot of the new characters, and I'm excited to see what they start to do with everyone else involved with this. A lot of people get shortchanged in here. That is a major thing in here. And some of your favorite characters might not get a moment to shine. But I am still excited. Again, this is the best Fast and Furious movie since Furious 7. And as hardcore Fast and Furious fans, I think you are in for a ride. If you've never been about this franchise or you're just completely over it, I don't know if this one's going to completely win you back. I think this one might still be like, okay, I'm over it. But if you were someone who liked F9 to a certain extent, but was like, okay, I'm about to jump off the road. I'm done with this ride that we're going on. This movie will save your excitement. I think this is a major franchise saver. And that's crazy to hear because we're 10 installments in within the main line and then 11 if you count Hobbs and Shaw. So with that said, I'm going to give Fast 10 a B. Let me know down below what your guys' thoughts are again. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. And of course, until next time, stay classy.